listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me, non-judgmental talk about infidelity with Dr. Marie Murphy. If you're looking for new perspectives on complicated relationship issues, you've come to the right place.
Days go by, they're crawling by.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Dr. Marie Murphy, and I'm a relationship coach who specializes, in helping people who are engaging in some form of infidelity deal with their feelings, clarify what they want, and make decisions about what they're going to do. I offer confidential, non-judgmental coaching that is tailored to your specific needs. So if you want some help dealing with your infidelity situation, you can schedule an introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. All right. Sometimes two people meet and get to know each other and fall in love, and everything is absolutely amazing, except for one little problem. One of them is married to someone else or is in a committed relationship with someone else. Of course, it can also happen that two people meet and fall in love and they're both in committed relationships with other people. But since this is an episode dedicated to the experience of being the other person, we'll just say that only one member of our hypothetical happy couple is committed to someone else. Today's episode is the third in a series of episodes dedicated to being the other person. And I want to start this one off by saying that sometimes great relationships are born in very complicated circumstances. Or more specifically, sometimes relationships that start off as affairs turn into beautiful, successful, long-term relationships beyond the affair bubble. Some affairs transition to quote unquote official relationships. It may not be an easy transition, and it may not happen as quickly as you might like, but sometimes these situations do resolve themselves in a way that is wonderful for the couple and is fine for everyone else involved too. And I'm certainly not suggesting that there's ever a guarantee that this will happen, but I do want to emphasize that this is not an impossible outcome. Sometimes I hear people saying things like, well, it's never possible for an affair to survive beyond the affair bubble. And this just isn't true. Relationships that begin as affairs can and do survive beyond the so-called affair bubble. It is important to be aware that some relationships that start as affairs do not transition well to non-affair relationships, so to speak, but that can happen for so many different reasons. It's not as simple as saying that a relationship that starts as an affair can't work out in so-called normal life. So don't let anyone tell you that. However, here comes the buts. Transitioning a relationship from an affair or a situation in which at least one of the parties involved is cheating on someone else to a non-affair relationship or a so-called normal relationship can be quite a process. And by process, what I kind of mean is it can be one hell of an emotional roller coaster ride. And that can be true for each member of the couple, both the person who is leaving an established relationship and the person who is waiting for the other person to leave an established relationship. Extricating yourself from a marriage or a long-term committed relationship is quite an experience. And waiting for someone you love and want to be with to extricate themselves from a marriage is also quite an experience. And both of these experiences are important and worthy of discussion. But today I'm going to focus on the latter since we are talking about being the other person. But let me back up a little bit. I've started off as if we're assuming that you, as the other person, are in a relationship with someone who's married or partnered, but has decided to leave their committed relationship. Let's go back a few steps and talk about what might happen before your person makes the decision to leave their committed relationship. One of the many features of being involved with someone who is also involved with someone else is that you may get to hear all about how unhappy they are in their committed relationship. You may hear them tell you all of the things they dislike about their spouse or their partner. You may hear all of the stories about how bad things have been between them and for how long. You may hear about the horrors of their unsatisfying sex life or the non-existence of their sex life. You may hear about everything that they don't like one bit about their relationship. Or you may hear them complaining about their relationship one day and then singing a different tune the next. Or maybe they've told you that they aren't really sure how they feel about their marriage, but you see all kinds of evidence that they aren't happy with their spouse and that they and their spouse are totally mismatched. And you may be sure that they would be so much happier if they would just tear the Band-Aid off and leave the relationship already. It can be really hard to listen to someone talk about their dissatisfaction in their relationship and see them not doing anything about it, even if you're not romantically involved with them. If you hear a friend talking about how miserable they are in their marriage and never doing anything about it, that probably would get old after a while. But if you are romantically involved with someone who complains about their relationship and doesn't seem to be taking any steps to change the relationship or end the relationship, well, you may find yourself very emotionally invested in your person's orientation to their committed relationship. And as strange as this might sound, this might be kind of exciting for a while. As I've talked about in other podcast episodes, relationship drama of all varieties can be really compelling and really intoxicating. And wondering if your person will or won't eventually leave their spouse, or wondering if they're really serious about being dissatisfied with their marriage, or wondering whether or not there's any possibility for things between the two of you to work out beyond the affair bubble. These kinds of questions can become the central focus of your life. And that might serve some real functions for you. You may be, intentionally or otherwise, using this sort of drama or excitement to distract yourself from other important pieces of business that you might need to attend to. And if you want to hear more about that, go back and listen to the episode called, oh God, what's it called? It's not called Drama, Distraction, and Infidelity, but it's something close to that. Look for drama and distraction, and you'll find the episode. Okay. I do want to make it clear that if you're in this kind of a situation, if you're involved with someone else who you want to be with, who complains about their committed relationship all of the time, but doesn't seem to be taking any definite steps to end that relationship, questions about whether or not your person will ever choose to leave their marriage may seem like the central features of your existence. In other words, these kinds of questions may not seem like drama at all. It may seem like critically important matters that you have every right to be focused on and intensely concerned about. You may want to know for sure and as soon as possible whether or not your relationship has a chance to exist beyond the affair bubble. And you may feel perfectly justified in obsessing about what's going to happen. You may also believe that you're at the mercy of your person's choices. And you may think that they have the upper hand in the situation in terms of determining the fate of your relationship. But you aren't, and they don't. First of all, you get to choose whether or not you want to continue to participate in the relationship or at any point in time. Yes, you and your person may have an amazing connection. Yes, you may be madly in love. Yes, your person may be an absolutely wonderful human who you really want to forge a lasting relationship with. But if you are not happy in being in a if you are not happy about being in a relationship that includes the feature of one party being officially committed to someone other than you, at least in the moment and in the short term, you always have the option to discontinue your participation in that relationship. You always have the power to do that. And that might not seem like an attractive option, but it is important to keep in mind that this truly is an option that's always available to you. Here's one of the reasons why I mention this. Sometimes when we're waiting for someone to do something that we want them to do, we give them an ultimatum. So it might be very tempting for you to try and manage your relationship with your person by telling them that they have to make a decision about what they're going to do about their other relationship by a particular date. When we do this, our hope is usually that they will either do what we want them to do within the requested time frame, and we'll get to feel good about that, or they won't do it, and then at least we'll know where things stand. And it can seem completely reasonable to do something like this. It can seem completely reasonable to issue an ultimatum to our person. And it may seem completely reasonable to believe that our feelings are dependent upon their actions. But number one, we always create our own feelings through our thinking about what other people do or don't do. It's not their actions in and of themselves that cause us to feel however we feel. And number two, trying to dictate other people's actions usually doesn't work out all that well. If it does work out okay, it usually doesn't do so forever and ever. So instead of trying to predict the future or control your person's orientation to their other relationship, your energy can be spent on you and cleaning up your own mental clutter. And by that, I mean your beliefs about your relationship and what needs to happen and why it needs to happen. And you can use your own energy to deal with your emotions. Learning how to digest our own emotions is one of the best gifts we can give ourselves. And interestingly enough, one of the best gifts we can give our partner. And you can also use your energy to make really clear choices about how you want to participate in the relationship. If you decide that you want to stay in the relationship and see what happens, you get to decide how long you're willing to wait and see what happens in the relationship. You don't get to control your person's timeline, but you do get to control your own timeline. How long do you want to wait and see what happens? How long are you willing to tolerate the state of limbo you're in? You get to decide. You also get to decide how you approach the experience of waiting, and you get to decide how you're going to relate to the uncertainty at hand. Even when we're facing uncertainty, we get to decide how we want to think about our situation, which will determine how we feel about our situation. Many of us don't know how to do this. We don't know how to relate to uncertainty very well. And that's okay because we can learn. And this is one of the things that coaching can help so much with. We all get to learn how to decide how we're going to relate to any circumstance in our lives. But most of us need some practice and some guidance in doing this so that we can feel good, even if we can't control everything that happens in our relationships or in our lives as a whole. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit now and say that your person has decided that they are indeed going to extricate themselves from their marriage or their committed relationship, and they want to be with you. And the plan is for the two of you to be together in an official capacity. That may usher in a whole new round of challenges for you, or perhaps new iterations of previous challenges. For instance, your person may decide for sure that they want to leave their marriage, but then they can't work up the nerve to tell their spouse this. Or they tell their spouse, but their spouse begs them to reconsider and they begin to do exactly that. Or perhaps your person and their spouse decide to separate or decide to divorce, and then nothing happens. Nobody takes any action to move the process forward. And maybe your person who used to tell you all about all of the details of what was going on in their other relationship has suddenly gone silent on that topic. Maybe you're dying for some insight into what they're thinking, and they aren't providing very much of that. And maybe you're starting to wonder whether or not they're ever really going to leave the relationship with their spouse or partner. Maybe you're wondering if this is just going to be a long, drawn-out saga that doesn't end well for you. Here are several things to keep in mind if you're in a situation like that. Leaving a relationship you've been committed to for a long time is pretty hard for a lot of people. And by pretty hard, I mean anything from the most difficult thing they've ever done to incomprehensibly impossible. And this can be true even if someone has been unhappy in the relationship for a long time and are generally sure that it really is time for them to end the relationship. This can be true even in circumstances where there aren't any major concerns about money or custody of children or any other big practical or material considerations associated with splitting up. There are many reasons why leaving a long-term relationship can be tough, even if the relationship has been stagnant or acrimonious or otherwise challenged for a long time. A lot of people find comfort in familiarity. And so many of us derive a lot of comfort and familiarity from marriages or relationships and home and family. And even if that relationship and even if that home life isn't satisfying, we may have a really hard time imagining a different life for ourselves or to truly believe that another life is really possible for us. Now, I know what you might be thinking here if you're the other person. You might be thinking that your person really does want to leave their relationship. You're sure of it. And that the two of you have talked about all of their fears and all of the other things, and that you know fear of change can't possibly be what's going on with your person. And to that, I say maybe and maybe not. Sometimes the person leaving their marriage is experiencing a whole bunch of weird shit, to use the most technical terminology. And they're encountering new and strange emotions every day. And they may not always be able to make sense of what they're feeling themselves. So, no matter how well you know your person, you may not fully understand all of what they're going through. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. I recently interviewed Gina Frangello on this podcast, author of the fantastic memoir, Blow Your House Down. And here's something she wrote in that book about leaving her husband. Here's a thing you don't know unless you too have left someone it nearly killed you to leave. And that is, when you cleave from someone who doesn't want to break up, you have to find a cold steel core inside yourself to stand firm. You have to resist nostalgia, resist memory, resist the plurality of love. When I work with clients who are in the process of deciding whether or not to leave their marriage, or have decided to leave their marriage and are in the process of doing so or sort of doing so, they often express all of these agonies that Gina Frangello describes and then some. And the point for you, if you're the other person, is that if you are standing on the sidelines, watching someone you love and want to be with go through this process, it can be really tough. It's tough for your person, of course, for them to do what they're doing, but it's also really tough for you to witness them going through the process of figuring out how to extricate themselves from their other relationship. And if you're waiting on the sidelines, and that, I realize that might sound kind of awful, but I mean it pretty loosely. If you're waiting on the sidelines, your person's hesitation to leave their other relationship may seem like a slight to you. It may seem like they don't appreciate everything that you have to offer and all of the good that your relationship holds and all of the potential for your wonderful future together. And what I want to suggest to that is more than one thing can be true at once. It can be true that your person loves you very much and really does want a future in which the two of you are together. And it may also be like hard for them in bizarre and unanticipated ways for them to leave their other relationship. And they may not fully understand what's going on and why that process is so difficult. And thus you may not really understand either. And that's okay. So I'm urging empathy for what your person is going through. And I'm also urging you to have empathy for yourself. And the fact remains that you always get to decide whether you want to continue participating in the relationship or not. If you've been sticking around and, holding out faith that everything's going to work out and it starts to seem like you've been waiting too long, maybe it is too long. You get to decide how long you're going to wait. Again, I want to reiterate that sometimes great relationships have complicated beginnings. Even if it is hard to extricate oneself from a marriage, even if it takes a while sometimes, people do it. So if you're waiting for your person to leave your marriage and it seems like it's taking a while, that does not mean it's never going to happen. However, let's be honest here. It is also true that some people don't leave their marriages. Some people who say they want to leave their marriages really mean it, but they can't quite figure out how to do it. They can't give themselves full permission to do it. or they can't quite make their way through the discomfort that comes with leaving a long-term relationship. Change can be really hard. And some people do ultimately choose to stick with familiar discomfort instead of choosing to embrace the discomfort that comes with stepping into new and unfamiliar territory, even if there is a clear promise of something great on the other side. Here's the point I'm going to end with. When we can cultivate a strong relationship with ourselves and make that relationship a priority, we are in a much better position to embrace uncertainty. We're in a much better position to embrace whatever happens with our relationship with our person, no matter how things unfold, whether we get what we want or don't get what we want. Having a strong relationship with ourselves also makes our relationships with other people better, in addition to helping us deal with sadness and loss if relationships we cherish come to an end. All right. Anything is possible, folks. Don't let anyone tell you that it's never going to happen for you and your affair partner to have a relationship beyond the affair bubble. But that said, it's not a guarantee either. So if you're the other person and you'd like some help navigating that situation, that's what I'm here for. You can head on over to my website to schedule an introductory coaching session with me. I know a lot of relationship experts out there offer prescriptive advice and tell you what you have to do or should do, but that's not how I work. I help my clients get clear on what's truly right for them and make decisions accordingly. I understand that life gets complicated and you won't get any shame, blame, or judgments from me. And that, dear listeners, is it for today. If you like what you've heard, I hope you'll head on over to iTunes to rate and review the show. Thank you so much for listening, and bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me with Dr. Marie Murphy. Make sure to click subscribe to get updates on our latest episodes.